Ja nie poszłam, to ona nie miała powiedzieć, chcę powiedzieć, że ona nie poszła. O mnie nie było, to mam, nie potrzebuję tej organizacji. Myślę, że tam była gorzej. Ten bazar.
I think we are ready to start. Anthony? Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I would like as well to welcome our online participants that are viewing this Congress. Dear Pavlina Hadjidiodulu, on behalf of Cyprus Pedagogical Institute, dear Rector of European University Cyprus, Professor Andreas Evstathiou, dear President of the Board of OIC and Project Director of Teachers Heaven, Evelina Ivanek, dear everyone, good afternoon. Welcome to the first Teachers Heaven Congress entitled Advancing Teachers' Well-Being and Professional Growth. Thank you for joining us here today. It's a privilege to open this event on behalf of the organizing team and to welcome participants and speakers from several European countries, including Cyprus, Poland, Romania, Italy, Spain, and Portugal. Seeing so many educators, researchers, and professionals gathered here today is truly inspiring. Different countries, different systems, different experiences, yet many shared challenges. This Congress is part of the broader vision of Teachers Heaven Erasmus project, which responds to an increasingly well-documented reality. While teachers are central to educational quality and social development, their well-being, self-efficacy, and professional sustainability are often placed under considerable strain. Issues such as burnout, emotional exhaustion, and reduced professional confidence are no longer isolated or individual concerns. They are systematic challenges that require collective, evidence-based responses. Over the next 2 days, we will engage in keynote speeches, seminars, and workshops that address critical issues such as teachers' well-being, resilience, self-efficacy, burnout prevention, and professional growth, themes that are central to the reality of teaching today. Our speakers bring diverse perspectives, expertise, and cultural context, enriching the dialogue and strengthening our collective understanding of these complex issues. Equally significant is the international and collaborative nature of this Congress. By bringing together expertise from 6 countries, we create a unique space for comparative reflection and mutual learning. While education systems may differ, many of the challenges teachers face are remarkably similar. Sharing experiences across borders allow us to identify common patterns, question established assumptions, and construct more effective and human responses to the realities of contemporary education. Equally important is the opportunity this Congress also offers to build a community of practice. Education does not advance through isolated efforts. Progress emerges through collaboration, dialogue, and the exchange of perspective across disciplines and national contexts. In this spirit, we encourage you to actively participate in discussions and to take full advantage of the networking opportunities throughout the Congress. As we open the first annual Teachers Congress, we would like to thank you for your presence, your commitment, and your contribution to this shared vision. We are proud to host this first annual Teachers Heaven Congress and look forward to the conversations, collaborations, and insights that will emerge from it. We wish you a stimulated, reflective, and rewarding experience. Thank you. I would like first to welcome Dr. Pavlina Theodolidou for her speech.
afternoon. Welcome to Cyprus for people who have come from abroad. I'm here on behalf of our director, Dr. Elena Hachikakou, who, due to other commitments, is out of Nicosia today. So I'm going to read her greetings. It is with great pleasure that I address the first Teachers' Conference taking place within the framework of the European Haven Programme Advancing Teachers' Wellbeing and Professional Growth, an initiative that promotes cooperation, innovation, and the exchange of good practices at a European level. The Cyprus Pedagogical Institute of the Ministry of Education, Sport and Youth, within the framework of its mission for empowering teachers through continuous professional learning and development, actively supports initiatives that enhance well-being, social cohesion, and inclusion. The European Teachers' Haven Programme is fully aligned with the vision of the Cyprus Pedagogical Institute for teachers who work in a modern, democratic, and student-centered education system and who are capable of responding to the needs of all students. The Teachers' Haven Programme responds to the contemporary challenges facing European societies, emphasizing the creation of safe, supportive, and resilient learning and action frameworks. Through this transnational cooperation, scientific documentation, and the implementation of modern pedagogical and social approaches, the program aims to contribute substantially to improving the quality of the practices and policies provided. I would like to congratulate all the European partners, the coordinator, the participants in the program for the cooperation, commitment, and the contribution to the successful implementation of all Teachers' Haven activities. Collective effort and the exchange of experiences are the cornerstone for creating meaningful and sustainable results. The Teachers' Haven program functions as a framework for inspiration, innovation, and creative dialogue. So I wish you success, and I'm looking forward to continuing our fruitful collaboration with the European University. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hachidiodoulou. We now welcome our rector, Professor Andreas Evstathiou, for his welcoming talk.
Good afternoon, everyone. Distinguished guests, dear colleagues, dear students. It is my great pleasure and honor to welcome you to European University Cyprus today on the occasion of the organization of the first Teachers' Haven Congress titled Advancing Teachers' Well-Being and Professional Growth. The Teachers' Haven Academy, a large project funded by Erasmus+, is dedicated to providing innovative, high-quality, research-informed blended training programs and resources that promote inner balance, well-being, and confidence in applying professional skills. Its mission is to strengthen the professional self-efficacy of both new and experienced educators, ultimately improving classroom performance and enhancing the appeal of the teaching profession. The Academy also aims to cultivate a supportive network of experienced teachers, specialists, and peers who can offer guidance, counseling, and practical assistance. We are pleased to see that the Congress includes keynote speeches, experiential workshops, seminars, and roundtable discussions. All activities are centered on teachers and students addressing topics such as burnout, self-efficacy, personal development, teachers' mental health, resilience, among others. We are also delighted to welcome to our campus distinguished speakers from LUMSA University of Rome, the University of Salamanca in Spain, as well as other organizations in Europe who participate in Teachers' Haven Academy. I would like to take this opportunity to say a few words about our university, an academic institution in Cyprus, where increasingly university education research, innovation, and technology assume a more central role. Our institution has made remarkable progress since its founding more than 60 years ago. Today, a growing number of our faculty and researchers collaborate with leading scientists from top universities around the world. They also lead or contribute to prestigious research projects funded by the European Commission, the Research and Innovation Foundation here in Cyprus, and numerous other funding agencies. Over the past decade, our research activity has grown steadily at an annual rate of around 20 to 30%, resulting in a significant increase in external funding and a strong presence in peer-reviewed publications. I'm pleased to highlight several recent achievements for the university, which reflect our continued commitment to excellence in research, education, and international collaboration. EUC is already in the top 1,000 universities in the world, according to the Times Higher Education World University Rankings, 600 to 800 in medical and health. Last year, we had our first graduates at the International Digital Economy College at Minyang in China. We are now on the second year of an exciting journey with our 8 partners in the European Universities Alliance Sunrise. And last year, we launched our School of Veterinary Medicine, which is housed in the recently completed addition to our Nicosia campus. We are also very proud of the fact that our university 4 years ago began the offer of the program in medicine at our the branch of our respective school in Frankfurt, Germany. It is a great honor that this is the first time a university based in Cyprus is offering programs of study outside the island. The university is pursuing a coordinated internationalization strategy, and participation in projects such as Teachers Haven Academy enables us to fulfill our objectives in this strategy, as it allows us to collaborate with universities and other organizations in Europe and around the world which share the same vision as us. Additionally, through Teachers Haven Academy, we make significant progress in our mission to serve the community here in Cyprus and contribute towards making the Cyprus education system and therefore society in general better. I would like to close with my thanks and congratulations to all those who contributed to the successful organization of this event, and especially colleagues from the Department of Social and Behavioral Sciences, Dr. Eleni Epifaniou, the chairperson, Dr. Monica Shakou, and Dr. Konstantina Dimitriou. I hope I haven't forgotten anybody. And I would also like to thank all the contributors, all the panelists who will make a contribution to this interesting event. Best wishes to all for a successful Congress. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Evstathiou, for your talk. I will now welcome the director for our project, Dr. Evelina Ivanek, for her welcoming talk.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a great pleasure and honor to welcome all of you, the participants in person and also online participants, to this first annual Congress, which is organized within the framework of Teachers Haven Academy. But as most of you are teachers or only teachers, at the beginning I have 2 questions for you. How often do you feel stressed in your role, in your job as a teacher? And how often do you feel that the expectations from parents, from students, from society are beyond your role as a teacher? If the answer is too often, it's something sure that you are not the only one. The research shows that how the reality of teachers nowadays look like. So in 12 education systems, half of the teachers, they are stating that they experienced stress at the high level. Even, for instance, in Poland, 2/3 of teachers, they also stated that they feel exhausted. And also the research shows that the huge percentage of teachers who are active nowadays, who are in practice, they also thinking about leaving the profession, yes, not to be a teacher in future anymore. But also there is another side of the story. When we are asking the teachers what brings satisfaction for them, they are telling that building positive atmosphere in the classroom, using humor, but also implementing different creative activities, innovative activities, and also support from the other teachers, colleagues, but also school leaders. So what does this tell us today, nowadays? It shows that teaching is not only about methods. It's not only about knowledge subject, yes? It's also about well-being, it's also about self-efficacy, it's also about support. And that is why our Teachers Heaven Academy is so important, because across the whole European countries, the teachers, they are facing the same challenges, growing challenges. From one side, it's a heavy workload. On the other hand, also, we have rapid development of technology. So digitalization, but also high expectations. So that is why our project, the Teachers Heaven Academy, addresses all these challenges by providing teachers with research-based tools and strategies to improve well-being of teachers, but also strengthen their professional skills, also enhance efficacy, and also build a common community of teachers and experts who could support each other in the role of being a teacher. And that is why also the partners from 6 countries, Poland, Cyprus, Italy, Spain, Portugal, and Romania, they have created together the common shared space, and they are bringing together all the teachers in the whole Europe to improve well-being, to strengthen professional skills, self-efficacy, and also build this wonderful community. And in the upcoming months, the Teachers Heaven Academy will also offer a wide range of different types of activities, starting from today, from this annual congress, but there will be also another congresses next year's, also boot camps, webinars, info days, but also self-development programs and training programs, and even more. And everything is designed and projected and implemented with one belief, that the teachers, they deserve to feel valued, supported, and also connected. That is why also being here today, I would like to invite all of you to stay with contact with us, to stay involved in the Teachers Heaven Academy and be part of this Teacher Academy. And as regards today's event, I wish this event will bring you some inspiration, and it will also motivate you to think over about your personal growth, about your professional growth. Thank you very much for having us here in Cyprus.
All right. And now we are ready to officially begin the proceedings of this Congress. So we will start with our first keynote speech. It's now my pleasure to welcome here Dr. Ilaria Bounomo. Dr. Ilaria Bounomo is an associate professor in work and organizational psychology at LUMSA University in Rome, Italy. And her work focuses on teachers' well-being, work-related stress, professional identity, and sustainable development in educational and organizational contexts. Her research contributes to a deeper understanding of the psychological and organizational factors that are influence educators' motivation, resilience, and professional growth. At her talk, with the title Assessing Teachers' Well-Being and Professional Needs, Evidence from 6 Countries in the Teachers Heaven Academy project, She will present findings from a large-scale European study assessing teachers' well-being and professional needs across the countries, focusing on 3 core domains: psychological well-being, self-efficacy, and perceived support. We are delighted to have her here. Her contribution are part of our Congress. Please join me in warmly welcoming Dr. Ilaria Buonomo.
Thank you. Thank you for this presentation, and thank you for having me here. I'm here on behalf of the LUMSA University of Rome, and my role here today is to introduce you to basically the core activity of our first project, of our first year here at Teachers Heaven Academy, which was this large-scale survey followed by a qualitative study. Our starting point was the OECD TALIS 2024. And basically, the OECD TALIS is a worldwide survey aimed at understanding how teaching practices are connected to teaching performance, but above all, teaching well-being. What emerged in the last OECD, which is the 2024 version, is that the higher the workload, the higher the classroom management pressure, and the higher the assessment pressure, the lower the teacher's well-being, and the higher the risk burnout and distress risk. So basically, may we hypothesize that their quality of teaching would have been lower, that probably the classroom climate created within their classrooms would have been less effective, and that we would have a problem with their turnover intentions. So basically, burnt out workers and burnt out teachers, more specifically, are more willing to leave. Starting from this, we built up the survey around the Teachers Heaven project. Our idea was to gather information about well-being, self-efficacy, and support from our 6 partner countries. So we gathered data in Cyprus, in Italy, in Poland, in Portugal, in Romania, and in Spain, using a mixed methods approach. So a qualitative a qualitative study that followed a quantitative study. As you can see, we reached 1,088 teachers. And we've been measuring all the dimensions of well-being risks and opportunities, as well as the resources in well-being and personal beliefs connected to the teaching experience. We had 3 key research questions in mind. The first one was, how are we doing? What's going on? And so basically, how do you feel? What's your burnout risk? What's your well-being condition? Do you feel enough motivated and engagement to go on with your teaching experience, with your teaching job or not? Then what kind of resources do you feel you have? And then what can you tell us about your needs in case you are an in-service teacher and in case you are an in-training teacher? Basically, our specific contribution above and beyond the TALIS 2024 was to provide psychological profiles for our teachers, to focus our analysis on resources instead of risk, and to try and understand from a qualitative point of view, so going in depth, what's behind the data, what's behind the means and the standard deviations and stuff. So basically, we wanted to gather data not only to take a picture, but we wanted to gather data to build a project and to make change happen. So I'm going to start with our first point, our first step, which was our survey. Our teachers were predominantly females, but that's quite common. That's how things go in Europe. They were Half of them held a graduate degree, and they had a mix of temporary and indefinite contracts. And above half of them worked with students with special needs. In most cases, we're talking about general teachers, but we even had special education teachers, subject specialists, and early childhood educators. As you can see, in most cases, we had teachers from the second cycle, followed by teachers from primary schools, secondary schools, and then other levels of education. These are all the measurements that we used. So we measured burnout through the burnout assessment tool. We measured depression, anxiety, and stress levels through the DASS-21, then the Utrecht Work Engagement Scale for engagement, the teacher sense of efficacy scale for self-efficacy in some specific domains I'm going to tell you more about in a minute. Then we had a multidimensional scale of perceived support. That support was connected both to the teaching environment and to personal life environment. And then we had a measure for mental health that was aimed at measuring different dimensions of psychological well-being. So what does emerge from here? We had two patterns. The first pattern, the first cluster, was what we labeled at a higher distress condition. From a psychological point of view, stress is just part of our lives. We need to stress out in order to perform. This means that we can differentiate between an eustress condition and a distress condition. The eustress condition is the good stress condition. So it's the adrenaline. I feel that my body and my mind are preparing myself to deal with this challenge, and that's all. Where does it become tricky? It becomes tricky when I feel like my distress, so the bad version of stress, keeps going even when I'm out of my school, I'm not with my students and my colleagues anymore, and so on and so forth. So basically, when I start to bring my stress sources at home, if I'm a teacher. In the higher distress cluster, we likely have teachers that tend to be more exposed to burnout, that tend to be more exposed to stress conditions, and that tend to experience lower engagement and lower well-being. What does it mean? That they need probably a higher amount of perceived resources that for now, from our survey, seem to be kind of weakerly perceived. That's particularly true for conditions in which, can I continue? Okay. For the conditions in which they feel emotionally under pressure. So generally speaking, the first cluster tends to talk about emotional strain. Strain is basically our stressor, so the source of our stress condition. Then we have cluster 2. Cluster 2 was labeled for us the better adjustment cluster. The better adjustment cluster was basically the cluster that felt more resourceful. What does it mean? I feel more supported, I feel more effective, and hence I feel lower burnout risk and lower stress risk. I feel better, and my engagement is higher. In this case, is it likely, and then in our first hypothesis, that these differences are not random. They may depend on available resources. I'm going to go in higher depth on these two clusters, and basically what we'll observe is that in cluster 1, we have mostly teachers from Portugal, Cyprus, and Poland, while in cluster 2, we have mostly see, in the worst case, we can observe a level of burnout that doesn't reach 2.5. We're still talking about a lower to middle type of risk. But still, you can clearly observe a difference between Italy, Romania, and Spain, and then Poland, Cyprus, and Portugal. The core burnout marks the main aspects of burnout syndrome, which means the physical dimensions of it, so the sensation that I have not enough energy to deal with day-to-day stress. The emotional dimension of it, I need to detach myself from what is going on. And the cognitive dimension of it, that is mostly connected to the need I have to become a little bit sarcastic, a little bit cynical with what's going on in order to deal with that. Then we went in higher detail, and we moved to two main dimensions, which are exhaustion. In this scale, in the BAT, exhaustion marks both the physical and the emotional sense that my resources are depleting. My cup is not full anymore, basically. And then mental distance, which is that kind of detachment and cynicism, as was referring before. Then we started to observe what we may consider as a sort of prodromic conditions to burnout. Before I get burnt out, I will be stressed out. And that's where our second scale comes in. For the emotional distress dimension, we measure depression, anxiety, and perceived stress. Obviously, the scale went from 0 to 7, and our teachers tend to refer to themselves as being mostly stressed out, then depressed or anxious. Still, you can observe that different clusters. So we have Romania, Spain, and Italy all together with fairly low levels of stress. In this case, as you can see, the scale goes from 0 to 7, and their levels of stress are quite on the middle range. And then we have Cyprus, Portugal, and Poland from the other cluster condition at higher risk. Then we have depression. The depression means reached a point of 5, which means that our first risk is to be stressed out as teachers, and our second risk is to be depressed. That's quite common in research on burnout, so much that there are different pieces of research referring to burnt out people as being depressed or showing depressive symptoms. And then we have the anxiety side. On the anxiety side, we can still observe a difference between the two clusters. So we have Spain, Italy, and Romania on one side, and Cyprus, Portugal, and Poland on the other. And usually, when we are on the anxious side, we still feel we can deal with this challenge. There's still something to do with that. We can still do something. So generally speaking, if I feel like I'm stressed out, I have two options. I can keep going and then go on the more anxious path, or at some point I can say, okay, you know what? I cannot do it anymore, and then move on the depressive path. The more I go on the depressive path, the higher my risk for burnout. But let's move to the positive side, to the resourceful side. Work engagement, which is commonly related to as the opposite of burnout, so the availability of resources, shows again a different pattern for our cluster 1 and our cluster 2. So we have Cyprus, Portugal, and Poland showing a slightly lower engagement level than Spain, Romania, and Italy. Let's go in deeper detail. The work engagement constructs allows us to differentiate among 3 different types of energy. If the energy I'm referring to is physical, I have vigor, which is this side of our slide, and again, you can observe the difference between the two clusters. If my energy refers to emotions, this means I'm dedicated, I have zest, I have enthusiasm. Then, if my energy is connected to how much I feel like I have cognitive energy, how much attention and focus, how much immersed I am in my job, then this means that I'm absorted. As you can see, all 3 components show the same pattern. Let's go on with our well-being measures. And our well-being measure will differentiate it between emotional well-being, how much you feel like your emotions can be regulated so that your pleasant emotions are higher or more intense than your unpleasant ones. Then psychological well-being, how much you feel we can adjust to our day-to-day hassles or tasks or demands. And then your social well-being, how much you feel like you can rely on a safety net from a relational point of view. Again, as you can see, the country patterns comes in again. We have Poland, Cyprus, and Portugal teachers that tend to show lower levels when compared to Italy, Spain, and Romania participants. Now, self-efficacy. In our project, self-efficacy and social support are the two main leverages to understand what's going on in terms of our adjustment to teacher demands, but even in terms of how can we make those teachers' demands more manageable. Self-efficacy is the set of beliefs we have regarding ourselves depending on each task. These tasks can be connected to the personal life or to the work life. This means that I can have a self-efficacy belief for me as a partner, for me as a mom, for me as a sister, and so on and so forth. And then I'm going to have specific teacher self-efficacy beliefs if I'm a teacher. This self-efficacy belief is basically how much I believe I can deal with my teaching tasks. And these teaching tasks are usually defined in educational literature as follows. So as a teacher, I feel more or less effective in how good I am at providing instruction, and if I can deal and focus or not on specific strategies that I feel effective. Then how good I feel when it comes to classroom management, not only in terms of behavioral management, but even in terms of educational, pedagogical management of the class. And then how much I feel effective in engaging my students, in keeping them motivated and on my same page. Again, as you can see, we have Poland, Cyprus, and Portugal that in this case are a bit mixed up. Differently from what happened in our previous, let's say, resourceful measures, here we have a little bit of strain, a higher exposure, a higher vulnerability in the Spanish teachers compared to the previous data. And instead, we have Romania showing the highest self-efficacy across all three domains. Again, you can see that sometimes the second cluster gets split up. So while in instructional strategies, we can observe a sort of split here. Well, here we're gonna have quite a bit of growth, and that's the same here. We're going to have Poland, Cyprus, then Italy, but Portugal showing a higher perceived self-efficacy in gathering the students around the classroom objectives. What does it happen with social support? I was telling you before that we decided to measure social support both related to our private life and our professional life. That's because research shows us that it's not important the source of our support, who is part of our safety net. We still need to feel like that we can rely on someone when things are stressing us out. So here we have, again, a consistent pattern across all support resources with, in this case, Romania, again, showing the higher perceived support, and instead Portugal showing the lowest perceived support. Again, in this case, the social support dimension is perfectly consistent with what we observed with the well-being measure. We have the first cluster showing less resources than the second cluster. That's not random. There are several work well-being theories showing us that feeling socially supported is a big part of our ability to feel like we can adjust to our day-to-day tasks. So basically, what do we have? We have that countries with stronger resources show better teachers' well-being. And then, while in the cluster 1, we have higher burnout, higher distress, above all for the anxiety and distress subscale, lower engagement, a mixed condition for self-efficacy thanks to the higher self-efficacy in Portugal, weaker social support and lower well-being. Here we have a fairly compact and very cohesive condition. So in Italy, Spain, and Romania, we have stably lower burnout, lower distress, higher engagement, generally higher self-efficacy, stronger social support, and higher well-being. But as you can see, this is not enough. Because just dealing with means doesn't allow us to interpret, to understand what is going on. That's the reason why we needed a qualitative group of teachers. What did we do? We gathered voices from focus groups within each country, and we decided to gather together in training teachers and in service teachers because we needed to have the voices of both active professionals and pre-service teachers. We asked them to think about real episodes and to tell us about those real episodes, those everyday episodes. So basically we explored their general well-being dimensions, their self-efficacy, above all in instructional practice, then how much they felt supported from their colleagues, but even in terms of their training experience, above all if they were in training teachers. And then if they had some good practices, some inspirational content they wanted to share with us. We thematically analyzed the transcripts. We provided an interpretative synthesis for each country. And then we started to observe some cross-country pattern. That's what I'm going to share with you today. With regard to the in-training teachers, the core idea was the theory-practice gap. So several of them told us, okay, we learn lots of methods, and theoretically we're very keen on what we're supposed to do, but the truth is that we would love to have more hands-on workshops. So we need more practical experiences. We need to be exposed in a safe environment to the classroom condition. We need to be mentored, and we need that mentoring to be structured. We need to be kind of coached during the teaching preparation. And we need to be prepared from an emotional stance. We need to know how to deal with a difficult, quote-unquote, difficult classroom. We need to understand how to deal with stressful conditions, with emotionally delicate conditions. What about in-service training, the teachers? In-service teachers basically individuated 4 types of challenges. The first one is the bureaucratic overload and the emotional overload, and that's quite common for teachers. The reason is that from a work psychology point of view, a teacher is an helping professional. An helping professional is a person whose mission is based on helping other people grow or deal with something delicate and important in their lives. Helping professionals are usually based on a mission, calling, vocational meaning connected to their job. That means that when the bureaucracy comes in, I feel like I'm gonna spend my time and my energy on things that are not the core of my profession, are not the core of my job, are not what I expected to do in my life. Then obviously we have the emotional overload. And the emotional overload usually comes from the emotional labor. Emotional labor is the need we have to hide or show certain emotions at work because we feel it's right to do so. But this requires us a high amount of emotional regulation strategies. Then we have time pressure. We need to do well, and we need to do it in a certain time frame. And usually, I feel like that time is not enough. Then we have a limited institutional continuity, which means that I may move from one school to another, or from one class to another, and it's not always the case that I can decide on it. And then we have the lack of recognition. The teaching professional role, the teaching role was differently socially represented over time. This is more and more true, not only in terms of the school-family interaction, but even in terms of the school-society interaction. Yet, and that's the most important thing, and it's very helping professional, is that many teachers persist because of the meaning they find in their work. And that's why it is crucially important to help teachers build their resources, because their ability to put things in perspective is mostly meaning-based. I know that I'm doing something important. I know that I'm doing something critical, something meaningful, and that's why I keep going. Of course, they also told us something about what keeps them going. And they said, my colleagues keep me going. And that's where the safety net was confirmed by our qualitative data. We share strategies, so it's a sort of practical, instrumental social support, but even we listen to each other. So it's a matter of emotional, social type of support. Without that network, I don't know if I'd still be here. So basically, the resources that our teachers individuate in their teaching experience are collaboration with colleagues, creativity, autonomy, my ability to show up as myself while I'm teaching, the sense of meaning. I know that my job is purposeful, and the fact that I feel supported by my school leader and I feel supported by my administration. So I know that when I want to be autonomous and I want to be creative, someone is guarding my back. Still, we can individuate some even more common pattern. So we can individuate some core themes that were shared by the in-service teachers and the in-training teachers. And these themes, these needs, basically, are the need for a professional community. The in-training teachers talked about mentors, while the in-service teachers talked about the importance of colleagues and the importance of administrators. But basically, we're talking about a teaching community of people that support each other. Then both of them talked about emotional support. We need other people because for complex problems, we need more than one brain. We need more than one mind to deal with them. We cannot do this alone. This is not an isolated work. And then they need recognition. They need to feel that their meaning system is mirrored by the social and the family-connected meaning system. I know that I'm doing something important, but do you know it as well or not? Of course, our study had some limitations. We dealt with cross-sectional designs. We used self-report measures in our survey. Our samples were not representative, not in the survey, let alone the qualitative study. Of course, we individuated some cross-country patterns, but still the cultural identity of each of our country would have played a role in the answers. In the survey, despite for each measure, we had a country-validated version of the tool, but above all in the focus group, of course. And then, of course, we will have some unmeasured variables. So, for example, if I teach in a very small city to 20 people, is not the same as if I teach in a big metropolitan city to a 30-student class, just to name a couple. Still, we can individuate some practical implications, and more specifically, 3 levels of action. The first one is that we need to better curate initial teacher education. We need to create a structured mentoring program. We need to increase supervised practicum time. We need to integrate competence training connected to emotions and emotion regulation, and the ability to be part of a professional community. And then we need to make changes in terms of the organizational level of schools. What does it mean? We mean that we need to keep in mind that schools are organizations, and this means that they have organizational cultures, and that school leaders are organizational leaders. And hence, we need to promote a collaborative instead of an isolating organizational culture at school. We need to create time and space for peer exchange, because it's not enough to claim that we are collaborative and then we ask our teacher to go on finding pockets of time here and there to talk about difficult situations or any kind of stressful condition that may arise during a teaching day. We need to recognize the importance of having collegial, collaborative moments and make them part of the everyday school living. We need to reduce non-essential bureaucracy, despite it's not always the case. And we need to recognize that emotional labor is stressful, even when needed, even when necessary. Third point, we need an educational policy and system reform. Really investing in teacher well-being infrastructure and not only in their hard skills training. We need to elevate the social value of the teaching profession so that the mirroring of my meaning system and the social meaning system really works and is reciprocated. And then we need to design policies that acknowledge the complexity of the teaching job. So if we had to find three key takeaways, is that we need to observe that teacher well-being varies a lot, significantly across Europe, but this is not an individual thing. This is systemic, and this means that we can gather good practices and influence one another and find ways to grow together as a sort of intercultural and inter-country teaching community, professional community, that resources protect more than demands harm. We've been talking about collaboration. We've been talking about self-efficacy, about meaning. This means that we have lots of motivational and well-being-provoking leverages. And they're both individual and relational, which means that we have several situations, several leverages, several aspects of teachers' life we can build upon, and that teachers are asking us to be heard and to be supported. But no real change can be made if we do not listen to their actual needs and act accordingly. Thank you so much.
Any questions from our online participants? Yes, we do have one.
I just have one question.
Yep.
I found it a bit, it put me to thought. The fact that, was it really enough, the gap of 1 degree to be separated into opposite groups? Like it was the one team was reaching nearly 7 and then one was
Yeah.
like expanding a bit more than 7.5, so
Yeah.
it was not 2 and 7.
Yeah.
It was 6.5 and 7.5. It was 6 and 7. It was 5 point something and 6 point. I mean, it was
Yeah.
only one.
The
Didn't take us. They will really listen and be convinced that actually this is happening, or they say no, it's not. The value is very small.
okay. Yeah, of course. The question from the room was if is enough. Well, okay. If 1 point different is enough to differentiate, to put a country in one cluster instead of another. Is it a good synthesis? Okay. The cluster analysis was done with the 2-step cluster option on SPSS, which basically individuated with a certain degree of importance the amount of difference that we can observe across the 2 clusters. And the difference that we observed was middle to high, and that's the reason why we put the countries in the two different clusters. Yeah. Yep.
Sorry, Monica Mulet.
Yeah.
Thank you. I would love to continue this question
Yes.
because is it even possible to compare the raw data from different countries? Because probably we had different amount of people who were analyzed. We analyzed different amount of data from different countries. So this is the first thing. And the second is we have at the most of psychometrical, well, with the good properties tools, we have this option to have norms for different countries. So I think before jumping to the conclusion, it is also worth to consider that we are different in different countries, and the norms are different for low, middle, and high scores.
Yeah.
So to this maybe sometimes unjustified conclusion, it is worth to think that for sure, I totally agree with conclusions that the systemic approach is necessary to think about the people in a humanistic approach, not only these behavioral results that we would like to see and so on and so on. But that's the thing, maybe it's quite an open question that first raw data, so probably we need norms to judge or assess, is it high or low or medium anxiety, depression, and so on and so on. And the second, that we are different in different cultures. There are some European assessment tools like PISA results and so on and so on. We try to compare each other and so on. But thinking about teachers as individuals, it needs to see a bigger picture of culture which we live in. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this question. I agree totally. The main problem is that while we have cutoffs for risk-connected tools, we do not have cutoff for resource-connected tools. And that's interesting, because, you know, this is what we call the negativity bias. So basically, we are more concerned with finding cutoffs when things don't work, while we are not so concerned to understand if our resources are enough. The first reason why we decided to just put everything in one big survey and in one big sample was because we knew that if we had to rely only on cutoffs, we would have lose the resource-based approach, basically. But it could be interesting, actually, to try and individuate cutoffs for these resource-related tools, above all because we use resource tools that are very common in educational research, but actually are also in work psychology research. So this will be really interesting. In terms of, when you said teaching role, you meant in service versus in training teachers within each country. We didn't have the chance to reach enough people to make that comparison going. But again, this could be a very interesting approach. And regarding the cultural, let's say, situational approach, that's the reason why we decided to expand to a qualitative study. Of course, in this situation, we chose to provide you the general overall patterns, given that this was for us a way to try and individuate some common themes and build on them. But it could be interesting to individuate if we can pick some differences and build more within each country. Yeah, for sure they may show up. Yep. Thank you.
So, hi.
Hi.
Probably I'm gonna take it on from a point onwards, like before. I'm interested in the definition, actually, the profile of what we all call teachers. In my understanding and in my experience, if you take out of the equation the part where an experienced person, a pedagogical figure is within a classroom, all the rest, societal and professional status as such, within Europe, all other parts of the profile differ in terms of tenure, in terms of social identity, in terms of part of the system, and so on and so forward. Also, you were referring to in training and in service. Again, within Europe, this terminology varies, and it has a huge difference in between, even within a country. For example, in Cyprus, as I don't know if you already know this, but when you're referring to in service people, teachers, in primary school or in training for primary school teachers is totally different to in service or in training in high school. Because in high school, you have people coming from chemistry background, from physics, from music, and so on and so forward. While in primary school, you get people specifically to become teachers of primary school. So again, within Europe, these vary. So my understanding, in order to acknowledge more and understand more, to get the idea of the profile, is if you took it into consideration, because I saw some, you tried to analyze it in other parts, for example, tenure of teachers. We know that it is linked with the well-being and the anxiety of it and so on and so forth. Again, social identity of what teacher means. So these are my questions, whether or not you took into consideration, whether or not you compensated, or whether or not you took out some data in order to make it meaningful, not statistically, but as a profile. Thank you.
Thanks. In Italy, it's the same. We have a graduation for primary educators, for primary teachers, and then instead you can graduate in whatever you want and then decide that you want to become a teacher in your specific field if you want to work in secondary school, for example. We controlled for that aspect because each country partner was entitled to individuate its own definition of in-service and in-training. So we knew that my in-service teacher would be comparable to the Cyprus, Romania, Spain, and so on in service, as well as for the in-training. The second question was about the tenure, right, and other aspects.
Tenure was just an example.
Of course. Of course. What we did was trying to individuate the dimensions that are not connected to mixed results. So for example, for tenure track, we have results showing us that the more experienced the teacher, the higher the pool of resources he or she can build upon when dealing with stressful conditions, while in other situations, in other research, we can observe that the higher the tenure, the higher my burnout risk. And that's very variable. What we tried to do was to individuate and measure those conditions that may be kept kind of stable in terms of previous research. So that's the reason why we dealt with in-service and training, because it's a fairly common way to address the diverse conditions within the teaching community. And this is fairly stable across several different types of educational research and psychological research. Well, for example, for the tenure, as well as for the gender, actually, or for example, for the age of the teacher, we usually have mixed results in research. And for those kind of demographic, job-related variables that we try to observe, we did not have enough how can I say that? The sample was not split in a way that would allow us to keep the representativeness of it within each subgroup. And that's the reason why we did not go for it. For example, another thing that is quite commonly considered is whether or not the level of school I teach in is impacting my performance and my well-being. But we did not have enough data or data balanced enough to go for it. So we decided to avoid going in depth on things that we would have enough statistical power to justify.
All right.
Yep.
Sorry, wait, just to give the microphone. But have an online participant, so.
Just I don't like.
Okay, of course.
Because, I found the research very interesting, and my first question was in concern in maybe some governmental policies will have doubt the result of your research. That's why I even make the first question. My second question is, you reach out to results of, you did reach out to results of what can heal this burnouts and what we can do after your results, how to use them to deal with the situation. Could you use the same research to find out what caused this differentiation of the two groups, or what happened to each country to belong to systematically to that group of ensuring this, how to say, and have these patterns in the stress and all the factors you examine?
Well, what we did, partially the qualitative, the focus groups try and answer to this question, and that's the reason why in training teachers talk about the mentorship and the practical side of their training, while the in-service teachers talk about the overload and time pressures and stuff. What they reported is quite common in educational and psychological literature. We did not we did not measure the reasons for stress and burnout risks. And the reason is that there's a big theory that is the job demands resources theory. This theory says that your risk for stress and burnout becomes higher because you perceive that your demands are higher than your resources. And the very interesting thing about this theory is that this theory does not list demands and resources. And the reason is that the point is how much I perceive I am exposed to a demand and how much I perceive I am resourceful. So while on European level or even worldwide level surveys is very common to try and individuate lists of demands and lists of risk factors and stuff. Actually, that is not as useful as we can imagine, above all when we're talking about this type of idea of well-being. So the well-being and distress arising from my perceived condition of being able to deal with something. And that's the reason why we moved from the risk-based approach to the resource-based approach.
So that was no point of
yeah, it was not the point.
what was happening to each country, but the problem it comes from inside
Yeah.
the system, inside each country that brings it to that point.
Yeah,
Okay, that was clear. Thank you.
of course.
I would like to thank Dr. Ilaria Bonomo for this research, because I think it's important it's complex also to do all of these types of analysis, and sometimes numbers do not always reflect the complexity of the situation, as we can see from the different comments. But I think that the research is there, it's quite solid, so it gives us foundation for new work, for which I'm really thankful, and I think it's practical for us teachers and all of the people engaged in the music education as well, and education in general. But my question to you is quite specific. Do you believe if there is any cultural aspect that could also be associated with the two clusters you're describing? The cluster one being higher distress, which is Portugal, Cyprus, Poland, and then we have cluster two, which is Italy, Romania, and Spain. It's quite interesting because Spain and Portugal were like quite close,
Yeah.
but on your analysis we're rather far apart. Whereas maybe Italy and Spain, we could maybe see that Mediterranean culture, but again, that contradicts a little bit Cyprus, which is also part of it. So what are your thoughts on that?
Thank you for the question. The first thing that comes to my mind is the conservation of resources theory that says that, well, everything I've been talking about till now, so the fact that I am stressed out because I feel personally stressed out by something, it says that it is nested within my family culture and my social culture, so the prevalent culture within my society. So for sure it is likely that different countries are building up different ways of thinking about the teaching profession and then of me as a teacher thinking about myself. I think that culture is connected to both values, so things that we generally build together and live together, but even artifacts. So for example, in our case, the normative, or the way our schools are made, everything I can see about a school within a specific country is an emanation of that culture. So I have the sensation that this may play a role. So that probably, yeah, while Portugal is still Mediterranean, it would be very interesting to observe from one side the specific kind of social representation going on, from the other the type of culture and the different emanation of that culture expressing themselves within schools and for each teacher.
I think it was good for the research to have this differentiation of, I mean, not for someone to trust that your results are because they are Mediterranean. This is how they have the same perspective, and this is how they take things, and it's something happening in their head, and because of their psychology and culture and how they see things, and so it was a good thing you have.
Them
Mediterranean
separate,
countries
split
in
up.
the opposite blocks, yes.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry for stopping this nice discussion, but we're running out of time.
Thank you.
Because we started late. Oh, just to say that we're going to have an opportunity to discuss this further later on the networking discussion. Now we are having a 15-minute break, and then we'll be back for the round table and discussion. Please feel free to take a coffee and a small snack outside. Thank you.
Hey, hey, hey. Hey, hey. Hey, hey, hey. Hey, hey. Hey, hey. Ένα. Ένα.
Okay, shall we?
Hello.
Okay. Okay, we are ready to move on into the second section of today's procedures. And we're going to start with the round table that is going to be monitored by Dr. Monica Chagou, Associate Professor at European University, Cyprus.
Okay. Hello, everyone, from me as well. As my colleague mentioned, I am Dr. Monica Chagou. I'm an associate professor in educational psychology, and I'm also a licensed psychologist. So I have the opportunity to work very closely with teachers and headmasters and headmistresses, and also children. So I believe I have a good understanding of what is happening, at least in my country. So we are here to share experiences from our partner countries and see if we get an opportunity to exchange ideas and see where we're at the moment and what we need. I would like to say that this is not a presentation of any sort. This is just a dialogue, a friendly conversation between peers to share ideas about the subject of the mind behind the classroom, cross-country perspectives on self-efficacy, burnout, and teachers' mental health. I have with me some lovely individuals and colleagues, because I don't want to make a mistake in the names and where everyone is from. I have some difficult names. I will give the microphone so you can say maybe a little bit where you're from. Obviously, the gentleman sitting on my right is the easiest because he's Cypriot, so there you go.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is George Boyagis. A little about me in the part of being important today is that I'm also an educational psychologist, a professional psychologist in the field. And also through the years, I have been involved in various aspects of policy making, either directly or indirectly, either in a by position manner or privately in consulting. So other than the professional status and the experience that gave me through the years, I'm also familiar with how things work in the other side of the realm, briefly. So thank you.
First of all, thank you very much for having me, and thank you, Monica, for this lovely occasion. My name is Bogdan Seroid. I am a doctor of musicology, professor of music education, assistant professor of music education at the University of Salamanca. I'm representing here the Spanish team at the University of Salamanca, and my area of expertise is primary education, so the school levels that are age 6 to 12. And all of the courses that I'm lecturing will include arts and music as a practice, active engagement And well, that's probably the perspective that I'm going to be also defending here to present as a solution also to part of these problems that we were describing, like stress and all of these related factors. Thanks.
Thank you. My name is Oana Gaspar. I'm from Romania. I'm also a licensed psychologist and psychotherapist. I have a PhD in educational sciences, and I'm associate professor at Tibiscus University in Timișoara. I teach future psychologists. I teach future teachers. I train teachers. And I also am involved in teaching future psychotherapists. So I'm trying to mix all in this experience and bring it here. Thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be here. I'm very excited about this project, and I'm extremely happy to be here. Thank you.
My name is Agnieszka Szulej. I am a psychologist and pedagogue, and I've been working at private primary school for 15 years, and I work with children, with parents, and with teachers also. So I try to support them in difficult situations. Thank you.
Hello? Okay. Hello, good evening. My name is Flavio Bacci. I'm not a psychologist. So I bring a very different experience to this table. I studied physics and educational sciences. So I was a teacher for about 14 years. I taught mathematics and physics at high school in Italy. Then I was an educator. I've worked in foster houses, educational services in the surrounding of Milan. And for the past 10 years, I've been training soft skills. I teach soft skills in organization. And I participate to European projects like this because I've got this experience as a teacher.
Thank you very much. So I have prepared some questions for our panel. Please feel free to just, share your views. I'm not going to give anyone a chance, or feel free. I'm not going to give you the microphone. Just, So let me open the first question. Now, how do education policies and school cultures in your country influence teachers' sense of self-efficacy, particularly in challenging classroom contexts? Who would like to go first? Anyone? Yes? Yes, of course. How do education policies and school cultures in your country influence teachers' sense of self-efficacy, particularly in challenging classrooms? So, do you have any policies set in place that you feel will influence in any way the self-efficacy of teachers, and especially when it comes to problematic classrooms in the context? So is there anything in place that you feel helps the self-efficacy of the teachers? Inhibits also, maybe helps or inhibits, or is non-existent? Yes?
Thank you. Yes, that's a very interesting question, actually, and I've given some thought even while listening to Professor Ilaria's paper before. In Romania, there is continuous depowering of teachers through salaries that are not reflecting their amount of work, through high bureaucratic activities, tasks they need to fulfill, to maybe taking away different aspects of their work that could help them. And this is in a systemic environment. It's done legally as a policy. And I think it lowers the self-efficacy, actually. That's why I intervened and asked. It doesn't enhance it. It's giving them the sense that they are overwhelmed, overpowered by parents, by the system, by pupils, and they're not able to perform.
I believe the case of Spain shares some similarities, but it's particularly interesting because in Spain we have 19 separate educational systems. It's something that many people don't know, because the way Spain is organized is that we have autonomous regions. So there is a general law of education that appears in Madrid, but that law then has to be complemented by each of the consejerías de educación, which are the departments of education of each autonomous region. So for instance, Salamanca, which is in the region of Castilla y León, has a different law of education than Barcelona, which is in the Catalonian region, right? These differences can be going just from the language that is used. For instance, in the Catalan region, we have Catalan education primarily, although Spanish is also included, towards even very specific acts in all of the aspects related to the bureaucracy. So the stress that was also displayed in the groups, in panels and roundtables that were conducted within this project reflected a very big reality that we face in Spain, and is that since Spain is a democracy that is changing political parties quite often, and this has been the case for the last 15 years, right now we have, for instance, a coalition, that's political coalition of different parties that's governing. Every time that a new political party appeared, we had a new educational law, not necessarily for the benefit of the teachers, but sometimes it's oriented or the result of this political decision of changing from left to right, from more conservative to more liberal. Of course, these changes in laws gave, just in the recent time of history, many different educational laws. One is called LOCSE, then we had LOE, LOMCE, then we had LOMLOE, which is the current one. And every time that a new educational law is changed, everything within the process is slightly modified. So if you want to become a teacher, you had to submit one type of work. Once the new law applies, you need to adapt your criteria, and instead of contents, maybe you're starting to teach skills or soft skills, and it's shifting. So of course, this uncertainty is creating in Spain a situation where teachers sometimes feel impotent and don't really know what to do. And at the same time, this applies both to newer teachers and older ones, because the older teachers are used and have seen so many changes, although that also gives them resilience towards change. But the newer ones sometimes are trained by teachers that were still founded by the old laws. And if the system changes every 3-4 years, you really need to adapt. And I think a main problem is that none of these laws that were done were based on a scientific study that would improve something for the teachers, but was mostly based on a political agenda. So clearly, we have a very problematic situation in that aspect, which means that the political situation is not really helpful in terms of policies. But then within the community, I think that it's a little bit about the Spanish mindset. It might be a little bit of a cliche, but there is this favoring of community. So I experience it, and I believe that in general in schools, there is this community making where people try to help each other because they understand we're facing the same, so to speak, problem or challenge. And I think that is, of course, helping work and find a solution to this situation. But clearly it's a systematic problem that goes way beyond what is the scope of what a teacher can do. Thanks.
Thank you. So, trying to touch back base to the initial framework, if I understood it correctly. I must inform the ones who are not familiar with the Cyprus system that currently we are under a new regulation in terms of evaluating and assessing teachers. So this is quite important at the moment and relevant to the question, to the initial question, because so many interesting subjects have been raised. But going back to it, it's important because up to this point there was no differentiation between a problematic classroom management or difficult school or difficult situation that an educator, a teacher would need to redefine his approach or modify or adapt or go above and beyond the norm and so on and so forward. So in other words, the teacher who has been placed or has been lucky enough to be allocated at a privileged, let's say, school, that it's easygoing and it's super supportive and so on and so forward, to another teacher who has been in a situation that put him under a lot of stress, purely on the basis of environmental factors, under the eyes of the system, it would mean no difference to one another. And in the process of evaluating and supporting them, again, within the eyes of the system, within the place of the bigger framework, it would make no official difference in this sense. I don't want to overrun and go ahead, but I will leave the point here.
Flavia, would you like to add something on this?
Yeah, just a little bit from the Italian situation. I would say more factors that inhibit teachers' self-efficacy, because it's very similar to what they've said, that simply school is not a priority. And for example, we have every new government, there is a reform, and let's change this, that, and so on. But the truth is that they cut funding for the school. I've tried to find out a statistic. We are the third less. Worse than us, there is only Romania.
In funding, you mean, Flavia?
In
yes,
funding
in
to instruction,
okay.
yeah, funding. About 3.9% of GDP. So worse than us, there is only Romania and Ireland.
So no money is invested in education, or little money, if I
Little
understand.
money,
Little
yes.
money.
And what is invested is we have a big problem, I think, with temporary teachers. And more or less, I found out that 25% of teachers are temporary. I've lived the life of temporary teachers. It goes like this. When it's June, school finish, and you are fired.
Yeah.
You are fired. And then September comes, and you are waiting for the telephone to ring. Okay, let's wait. Oh, do you want to come for 2 hours? Oh, what shall I do with 2 hours? It's not enough. Okay, I accept. And then another school call. Do you want to come for 5 hours? Oh, what shall I do? Yeah, okay. Maybe one school is there, the other school is in another place, and so on.
I can manage it, yes.
Temporary teachers. And last thing I want to, let me give you one other example of why school is not a priority. You cannot believe that, but we used to bring, school used to ask to parents, please bring toilet paper to school so that yes. Can you imagine what the children feel like? What is like school? What is the meaning? What you were saying? Social recognition is a place where they need the toilet paper. And we have a big problem with the buildings. very old buildings in very bad condition. Last thing I want to tell you, how the reforms, okay, let's change everything. Let's find a way so that people can learn mathematics. Okay? What did they do? We give a tablet to everyone. Relation. We have to focus on relation, not tablet.
Well, in Poland, over the last several years, we have many changes. Many changes appeared in our educational system, and one positive change which has had a good influence on effectiveness of teacher is an increase in a full position for specialists working in the school. I mean, every educational institution has to employ psychologists, and depending on the needs, also, for example, special education teacher or therapist teacher or a career advisor. So I think it's very important for us. And it's helpful. And financial support for professional development. I mean, we can use courses, workshops, and also postgraduate studies.
So self-development for the teachers, yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
They are dedicated to teachers.
Yeah.
And also technological support for teachers and schools. We have programs when we can equip schools with modern aids and multimedia classroom equipment. It's funded in 80% from budget state.
That is excellent, and we've heard some inhibitors, and we heard that, you know, and what is important, and I want to... Can you hear me? Yes, thank you. One thing that I draw from here is also from the focus group in Cyprus. We found that there is a need for school psychologists in the school, but we don't have any, so we share the same feelings. I'm going to move on to the second question, which is related to this, and it has to do with self-efficacy, and when that is not covered, then what happens to burnout, and is it a second step? So at what stage do you believe of a teacher's career is burnout most likely to occur in your contexts, and what do you think are the factors that contribute? We did hear that, you know, a few of the inhibitors, but do you think that there's some extra ones that could be related to burnout? Yeah? Anyone who wants to? Yeah, please?
I think that teachers' burnout appears most often at the beginning of the career. But in Poland, we can see that it's in the middle of middle stage also. And according to the report from September 2024 on occupational burnout, based on the survey among 451 teachers and principals in Poland, we learned that the most burdensome duties for teachers are related to bureaucracy and keeping documentation. So I think it's one of the factors which contribute to burnout.
So in terms of Cyprus, the whole burnout issue is, it has obviously, like any other country, its own complexity. But in my understanding, in terms of practice, mainly, but also through various different services and organizations, there are identified some major key points in time in a teacher's career, and it's either going to be within the initial stage of entering the profession, or somewhere half along the line, where the anticipation of some kind of a promotion or career excel doesn't occur. But also there is another major issue as time goes by. You see a lot of, I would say, a pessimistic approach towards the future and towards the understanding that nothing really matters, nothing really changes. Because when you talk to educators that have been around for many years, they'll see a lot of politicians, a lot of people from teachers' unions, a lot of policymakers promising them same things over and over again. So there is that understanding, there is that framework of nothing really changes. And if I may take advantage of this point in time to add a total opposite of what was said before in terms of reformment in Italy and in Spain. In Cyprus, the last actual reformment in terms of curriculum and structure took place in 2011. Okay, in 2011, it was the last time that a major reformment in curriculum, not in other various different minor issues, and that reinforcement from 2011 stands till this day, except 2 modules. One of them is history, and the other one, excuse me, I forget about it. I think it's Greek language, either Greek literature or something like that. But having said that, it's on the total opposite as to the reasoning of what was mentioned before in terms of Italy and in Spain. But yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, the Spanish situation is quite interesting because teachers usually are divided like in categories. So we obviously have private schools. In Spain, usually private schools teachers work more hours and have a smaller salary than public schools, which are quite well paid. And then we have these public schools that are also divided in 2 categories. So we have Colegio Público, which is fully public, and then we have Colegio Concertado, which is half public, half private. And generally those are in that category because they also teach Catholic religion, which is still, although Spain is a laic state, it doesn't have a main religion, still like Catholic religion is really present. So what happens in public schools specifically is that you can be either a funcionario, which is a lifetime position, tenure track, or interino, which is this situation where you are like changing because you're supplying a few hours there, a few hours there. So obviously the people that get the burnout usually are the interinos because their situation is very unstable. Once you become a funcionario and you have a relatively good salary, the work demands, of course, will vary also on your level of self-efficiency because you might want to work more or less, prepare your lessons or improvise. But in general, what we observe is that those teachers have and suffer less of that burnout. Maybe they experience it more towards the later stage of their lives because of all of the years that they've been accumulating, right? However, in these younger teachers, we have a systemic problem is that so many people graduate from the degree that I'm also a professor of, which is early childhood education and primary education. And in a small city like where you have 60,000 people, you might be getting 200 new teachers every year that are getting this degree. But obviously, there are not 200 new positions for which you can apply. So a lot of them go to unemployment. Actually, the bachelor's degree in education is, if not the number one of the top 5 degrees of unemployment in Spain. And these people usually prepare for that national exam to get to oposiciones, and that exam is what takes them to burnout sometimes, because you need to learn a lot of theory, you have to prepare. That exam is one national exam that's taken in one of these 19 regions. And imagine we get 6,000 people and there are only 100 open positions. So only 100 will get, and 5,000 will be out of job waiting, and a list of interinos still being called to a vacancy that needs to be covered there and there. So a lot of people my age from this generation, unfortunately, are in that large number of interinos, which is every year growing, because obviously there is this systemic disproportion from the number that people graduate and the number of open jobs. And sometimes they get their burnout, especially during that time, because they are unemployed, they get called to cover a few months there, then they actually, if it's an autonomous region like Castilla, we have 9 provinces. So you can be sent basically to one place that's maybe close to your house, but to next semester or trimester, you need to be working 400 kilometers away from home. So you need to move your house, move to a small town, work there, get relatively well paid. That's not like the main issue, but you are unstable. So your house, all of your life is on this truck, on this. And I know personally several friends of mine that are really experiencing this situation, and they are still hoping, after doing 3, 4, and even 5 times this national exam with good grades, not getting good enough to get their permanent position in a specific place to settle. And in that journey of doing the oposiciones, which is this national exam, many people give up. They just find this is not for them. Let's maybe find a different professions, because it really becomes a systemic problem, right? That over the years becoming larger, because the number of people that graduate, as I said, becomes exponentially bigger, whereas the number of places, unfortunately, we're even experiencing a little bit of a decrease, because Spain, as it's known, with its population, childbirth, it's decreasing in the last years. And there is this concept of España vaciada, which is all of the middle part of Spain, where often there is a lot of rural areas that are losing completely their population, because most people want to go to larger places like Madrid, Zaragoza, or Sevilla from the center, or towards the coast. And of course, that means closing sometimes schools. And when we close schools, we even get fewer positions for those teachers that have graduated. So that's the situation in Spain. Thank you.
Yes,
Can
please.
I
Yes,
add
yes.
something? Well, the teaching profession has always been at the risk of burnout due to contact with people and work with people. But I think that what is specific in this job, teacher's job, is that the fact that they have to work with different groups. I mean, they work with students, with parents, and teachers, and those groups have different needs. Very often, it's difficult to meet them. So there are high expectation to teacher, but they can deal with that very often. And what's more, there are more and more situations where students come to school. They are in classes with various type of difficulties. And
learning or emotional also, yes? Both.
Yeah, social difficulties, behavior difficulties, emotional.
I think you switched off your microphone. It's on? It's on? Yeah? I think you're done?
Yes, okay. So I wanted to say that it's nowadays it's really a big problem for teachers, because expectations are high, but they can't deal with this, and they have to stand in front of the class, and they have to cover curriculum in 45 minutes, and they have to pay attention to the students with special needs, and they have to maintain discipline and react in different situations. Sometimes when students behave in acceptable way. So I think it's really stressful, and it causes that they feel burnout, overloaded.
I also want to add that yes, overload is and adding layers of demands on top of the other for teachers is of course a factor that contributes to high stress and maybe burnout syndrome. But I guess we need to recognize it for what it is, that it's becoming a systemic problem, and it's not an individualized thing anymore.
You have led me to the next question, which, for the sake of saving time, I'm going to recoup what we said. It seems that I'm hearing from all partner countries that burnout is actually a systemic problem and not an individual problem that we need to face. And this brings us on to the subject of mental health of the teachers, which is a very important part of our project. And I would like to go to the fifth question to join this. And I would like to ask you, what formal mental health supports are available to teachers in your country? And having said that, I would like to ask, is there a stigma about us psychologists? Is there still a stigma about us psychologists? Because again, there are, individuals who would like to hide the doctor's office, the psychologist's office. They would not like to seek help. But we're hearing that there is a problem regarding the mental health. So do they, Yorgo?
Okay. So in Cyprus we have the Educational Psychology Services, which basically is part of the ecosystem of the Ministry of Education. And within the scope of business, shall we say, it is defined clearly the support process, targeting, enhancing mental health, and so on and so forward. But all of this, it is purely stayed in parts of imaginary situation, because it was never really applied within the actual schools and the educators. Reason being, not because the ministry did not understand or did not acknowledge the fact that educators do actually need support, nor because of stigma, but on the basis that our colleagues in the government sector are way overloaded, like 95% of their time, in being the gatekeepers between special education and regular education. So our colleagues in the public sector are the ones who are in a constant day-to-day framework of evaluating and providing suggestions for us to which student should or should not, and up to how much, let's say, in terms of percentage, this child should be allowed to be given in terms of special education or various other. This is what I was trying to make it crystal clear. Right now, educational services, governmental sector employs clinical psychologists and educational psychologists. Within their duties, within their job description, let's say, it is clearly stating, supporting the mental health of educators. In practice, nothing takes place. The reason being, what I said before, we, in our field of specialization in Cyprus, in public sectors, are preoccupied with our time doing exactly this, being the gatekeepers of special education. And in other cases, what is left, it's initiatives based purely in private terms, so nothing within the system officially usable. So no teacher in real life can seek and ask and request for professional help on an individual basis on the one hand, and on the other hand, systemically, the ministry does not support its people in terms of mental health. Yes, Pedagogical Institute is responsible for providing throughout the year trainings and briefings and some seminars and some workshops, but a constant observation throughout the years has been the fact that there is no support system whenever this sort of workshop or training or seminar is being taking place. So for example, if let's say we are trying to apply mental health preventing or raising awareness or screening or for whatever, you name it, it's there, okay? And we decide, we issue a policy, and this policy has been through various systematic scientific reviews, a lot of colleagues, I don't know, some maybe here within this class, have been called to provide support or evidence and so on. And we create it, yes? And we apply it. We do apply it for a limited amount of time, for a very specific framework, and that's it. We do not continue support our educators through the years. But I can say a lot of things, and I don't want, again, to take up.
So there is no sustainability. What about the other countries?
In Spain, obviously, if a person faces mental issues or needs psychological support, there is the private sector of psychologists. Obviously, there is a little bit of stigma still in the society, but I believe increasingly we're seeing across all ages and population more attendance towards these. Obviously, there is also this route of going to the public doctor and telling to the practitioner that you're experiencing anxiety, and you might be redirected to a public psychologist that can attend these health issues, stress-related, and maybe even ask for you, if you are like a permanent worker, to have some months paid, so you're staying and treating your anxiety or all of your psychological needs. But obviously within the school, there is no psychologist for teachers. So the psychological education, so to speak, that teachers can receive, stems from these centers of teacher trainers that are called CECIE, which are local, and they are assigned to each of the provinces. Spain has 50 provinces. So again, the budget of each of these varies. And obviously there is within those courses that are offered throughout the year this demand for stress-oriented courses that can be used to relieve and work on this well-being. But they are really different from one province to another. They're optional, they are not mandatory. They're offered maybe with 50, possibly 50 or 40 available slots for all of the province, which might include maybe a couple hundreds or even thousands teachers. So it's obviously not for everyone. And since there is still in society, in Spanish society, which in some aspects is quite traditional in certain regions, this desire of or stigma of hiding these inner problems, people do not go to psychologists and do not seek for that professional help. Thanks.
I've interviewed the headmaster of school for the research. By the way, we don't call them headmaster anymore, we call them manager. Yeah, that's important. And they say that they have started psychological counseling services, especially from the pandemic years, but they are for students. And most of them are for students. But they say to the teacher, if you want, you can go. But I would like to add another thing from my experience with educational services, like communities, like after-school services for adolescents, which was a psychological supervision, which was really, really important for us. And we met a psychology almost once a month or once every 2 months. And we had a supervision about the children we have, so we can share our problems. And we also have a supervision about ourselves, our feelings. And that was very, very powerful. And I think that most of the time, teachers are not a working group. They are isolated. They are a group of workers that they meet for a certain purpose. But psychological supervision could also make them feel more as a team. They work together with the same purpose and the same tools and so on.
Okay, I can say that in Poland there is no systemic solution that formally support teachers' mental health, but teacher in public schools can take 1 year paid leave. Yes, they can use it, they can take it after 7 years working, and they can take it 3 times during the time when they are teachers. So I think it's very helpful, and some of teachers use it. Yeah. So I think it's the most important in our system. But also we have some kind of workshops and meetings for educators, and I think the idea that psychologist is in the schools also helps teachers, because I know that I support teachers in the work. Then I think that it can be helpful.
Thank you. In Romania, there also is not a systemic address of well-being. The support is mainly on technical support, like methods. They receive money for books, for trainings, but not necessarily focused on well-being. But what I think it helps a lot in Romania, and I think this is a thing that maybe showed in the previous study that Mrs. Buonomo presented before, the fact that we rely a lot on the community. And by the community, I mean the community of professionals also, but also our loved ones, our family, our neighbors. A lot of teachers are bringing their work home, and sometimes even I, in my own teaching, I bring it home, and my husband also sometimes dictates the notes or helps me in some way. And I'm sure this is not an uncommon practice in Romania, maybe in other countries too. And this is how we manage to do it. We rely on the community, we rely on others. There are also some initiatives which unfortunately are not on political level, but are also done by NGOs, but have risen a lot in the past years. One of them is Super Teach. It's pretty famous in Romania, maybe some of you heard of it. It's started as an NGO offering support for teachers It organizes camps for teachers. It has a platform of resources, networks teachers among them, and through this network they also get kind of emotional and social support. So I think this is a good point. Yes.
Would like to add something quick to this, and then I will end with the final question.
Okay, so a little something that I forgot to mention earlier is the whole stigma topic. Through my experience, personal involvement through the years, roughly 15 to 20 years, there has been a shift, a huge change from back 20 years, 10 years, 15 years, 5 years, and so on and so forward, coming to this day. Stigma, in my understanding, throughout various different schools, primary, high school, public, private, and so on and so forward, has been eliminated to this day. I mean, you will not find stigma in terms of help. Also, going hand in hand with that is the fact that trainings for teachers through the years have been shifted in terms of requests. So initially, like 15 years ago, the requests were entirely focused on using, excuse my air quotes, using psychology as a science in order to apply them in classroom to manage difficult students. Through the years, we have been moved from that perspective to an understanding as to I, as a teacher, need to be in good health, mental health, hint, in order to do my best in class. So there is a major shift in terms of requests, in matters of trainings. And something else, just to enhance your statement, I come from a family of educators. Both my parents are teachers. When I say this to fellow Cypriots, they have an idea about my family profile without knowing me. So this says a lot about the network, the support between teachers and between families. I raised all my teenage years and young adulthood and so on surrounded by teachers who have been family friends, who have been self-supporting and supporting and supervised and so on and so forward. All of that unofficially. All of that as you mentioned it. Yes, yes, thank you.
Thank you. Because we're all getting hungry, I would like to summarize the next two questions, and I would like a quick comment from each of you if you want something to add. Speaking about all these policies and all these inhibitors and all these encouragements and whatnot that have to do with the three pillars of our project, self-efficacy, burnout, and well-being. If you could change one policy or add one policy to improve all these factors in your country, what would it be? Something, anything. Maybe if you had a magic wand or something, and you could, or a genie, and you could change one policy. What would it be? Shall I? Yeah, and then we can go further on.
Obviously, I'm strongly believing that the root of these problems are multiple. So probably just by fixing one little thing, although it's hypothetical, as Monica's making the question, we will not eliminate all of the stress problems, all of the well-being, and all of these different factors that are negatively affecting the mental health of the teachers. But from my perspective as a music educator, if I were to have a magical wand, I would like to always enhance the quality of music education, make it more widely available, because I strongly believe that arts in general, and of course here as a representative and advocate of music, is a great inhibitor towards finding a solution towards how to avoid the stress. Because when we are making music together, we're sharing community, it's therapeutic as well. And there are a lot of problems also that students experience that are, for instance, discipline problems. To learn a musical instrument, you need to build on that. And generally, like any art, or aspects that are related to attention deficit. I think one of the major aspects these days is attention deficit. Sometimes it's the cause is the type of media they consume. These young kids often are surrounded by short videos that are on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all of these platforms. And of course that affects their attention span. So clearly, I believe music, it's not a perfect solution, but it could be a very powerful tool to enhance education in general. Thanks.
Thank you. I do have a list, but I would not say the entire list, but I would need to name at least 2 or 3. Okay. What I would do is train teachers into self-regulation, emotional self-regulation, train them how to self-regulate emotions of pupils, and shift the purpose of education from delivering knowledge to fostering deep, authentic connection. I think this also enhances the need for knowledge, the want to know more, and will keep up the system education healthy. Thank you.
So it's difficult to choose only one, Jess. Yeah, okay. So I think that employing a psychologist in the schools is a good idea, but I would divide the psychologist task into working with students, supporting them, and consulting with parents. But also I would introduce coordinators in schools who could support only teachers. It would be person who could have time for them and helps them to dealing with difficult in conducting classes. And this person would be solely dedicated to them. And I think the benefits of hiring this person and this person outweigh the costs of employing such a person, because this support could help teachers feel more effective and motivated and reduce stress. And I think I think also that new teachers should have a mentor, so they could also help them learn rules, school rules, requirements, and adapt to the new environment and learn the tools which are available in the school. That's it. Thanks.
So I would have gone for effective soft skill training, very similar to yours, but as I have the magic wand, I choose to double or triple the salary. But making it very difficult to get there. Very hard training, soft skill training also.
A final speech from you, Yorgo?
I don't know. As the last person, I was giving a lot of extra time to think on top of that, and to be honest, I was trying to think of something really smart to say, but I could not find anything. Also, because the past many years I've worked with a lot of important people, and still I'm working with a lot of them. I've worked with people in politics who have been really in touch with the scientific approach, with the realities of the school system, people who wanted to change and help. Unfortunately, due to two reasons, I can't say anything. Reason number one is that it's a multifactorial thing, and I don't believe that any single factor could be of much benefit to the extent that we want. There are a lot of various different things that need to align together in order to truly change something. I do understand the notion, I do understand the soft skills and everything, and I do agree with them. But I also believe that there is an alignment of many different things working in parallel in order to achieve what we all want. And on the other hand, because a lot of people tried, a lot of people failed, I've seen situations where, for stupid reasons but politically valid ones, or for more votes, to sacrifice changes that would have been of benefit. So I have no faith in them. Also, I'd like to super support on what was said before. A couple of years ago, when in the parliament they were talking about giving some changes to special education students, shifting them from the regular classroom to the special ed classroom. They wanted to take out of the curriculum music, gymnastics, and modules and classes that in their understanding they were not significant, in their understanding they were not of beneficial for students. And we fought a war at that point and we won. So we kept music in assisting and in their day-to-day activities. So I am 100% with you on that. I don't want to leave on a pessimistic note, but I do believe that each and every one of us has a role to play and has a momentum to do changes and just find the right alignment. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. My little want would be to find a way to bring parents back to the schools and make them engaged in schools and make them love their children's teachers like they did in the past. Okay? That is missing from today's schools, and I think that's a big pain for the teachers. They're not recognized and they're not respected, and that causes them a lot of burnout. But I think I would definitely need a magic wand for that. So thank you very much. You were all so well prepared. I did miss a couple of questions due to time. So now let's eat. Thank you very much. All right.
Closing the first day of the Congress, I would like to thank you all for being here. I would like to thank our online participants who were with us during today. We're closing today's the first day with the social networking down in the cafeteria of AUC, and we are more excited to see you all tomorrow. Ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ που ήσασταν σήμερα μαζί μας. Αύριο έχουμε τα βιωματικά εργαστήρια, τα σεμινάρια και τα 2 keynote speeches και σας περιμένουμε με χαρά αύριο. Έχουμε κάτω τσιμπήματα και φαγητό για όλους. Καλό βράδυ, καλή συνέχεια. Γεια σας.